As I walked out one evening, walking down Bristol Street, the crowds upon the pavement were fields of harvest wheat. And down by the brimming river I heard a lover sing under an arch of the railway, "Love has no ending. I'll love you, dear, I'll love you, till China and Africa meet, and the river jumps over the mountain, and the salmon sing in the street."
People in New York always calculated and tried to figure the angles of what was best for them. Then the movement came along, which was spontaneous, and people did things because they thought it was right. One day, Jason Epstein up at New York Review of Books called up and said a famous British writer, Stephen Spender, was in town and was doing a book about America. And the students had just taken over Columbia University, and various buildings were being held, and it was all in the news, of course. It was a battle against racism in the university and complicity in the war in Vietnam and other issues. So I met Stephen Spender, who was a very, what would he say, decent sort. It's not a word we use about Americans much, but sometimes it really fits those Brits. And he was a decent sort, middle-aged. We go up to Columbia, and the siege had gone on for some days, and the cops weren't that intense in their, and so there was kind of a break in the cop ranks who were probably having a snack or a lunch or a beer, or probably something. And so I called up through the windows, and Stephen Spender, this middle-aged guy, started clambering up the security rails and up into the second floor building, which was Grayson Kirk's office, and they reached out and helped this guy, and he fit in just perfectly. Sat down on the floor and started talking to people, and did write a book, and did include in Columbia. In The Law of Unintended Consequences, I had no idea that he had a relationship with H Auden, and that they'd been in a circle of writers in England. One day, Jason Epstein at New York Review of Books calls again and says, "Hey, how would you like to have H Auden's apartment?" I said, "Well, sure." He said, "Well, WH goes to Austria for 7 months at a time and has an apartment on St. Mark's." Sure, I was living in a $32 a month basement one-roomer in Delancey Street. You go down and the light would be burned out, and you had no idea who was waiting in the basement before you got to your door. It was kind of scary. And of course, we were robbed and all that kind of stuff. So I go to meet Auden, and Auden was spoke in that hesitating, very gentlemanly British manner, and he wanted $125 for a whole floor of a building on St. Mark's. It was Gem Spa, was just down the Turkish bathhouse. It was incredible, and so I immediately tried to talk him down to $100 a month, and he was flabbergasted. He could have gotten a couple thousand probably for a floor of a building at that time. I said, "Well, I'm in the anti-war movement. We just don't have much money." And he said, "I really think 125 is very reasonable." And so I agreed, and I told him I'd protect all his books, which I did. And then he took me for a tour of the neighborhood. There's the chemist, and this bodega is like a good one for groceries, and the people are honest, etc., that kind of deal. And he told me, oh, Trotsky had lived in the basement, and there was a trunk of Trotsky's papers there. Just an interesting sidelight. And the whole time, Auden was wearing his bedroom slippers and this rumpled but high-quality British brown suit. And he was off to the publishers, and he hailed a cab, and I just met the man and wanted to say, WH, you still got your bedroom slippers on. But I thought the best of it, and off he went to Random House in his bedroom slippers, and I'm sure they were used to eccentric, brilliant writers, because he was considered with Yeats and T.S. Eliot as one of the three great British writers of the last century. He won a Pulitzer and all the rest. And so off he went in his bedroom slippers. The great thing about Auden was that, going back to the Spanish Civil War, he had been on the side of people against tyranny. And a lot of people get a puffed up reputation, particularly in America nowadays, that's so media driven. And when he got back after 7 months and he took his apartment back, he would call me at the Rat almost weekly in this huttering, stuttering, my name was Sherrow at the time, Mr. Sherrow. The FBI was by again today. They were asking about a Mr. Grell. Did Mr. Grell live at the apartment? No, WH, he didn't. All these people that got arrested in anti-war demonstrations had to have an address, and they didn't want to use a parent's address. They didn't want to use their crash pad address because they didn't want the police to swoop in at 2 a.m. and bust everybody. And so apparently they wrote down 77 St. Mark's, W.H. Auden's place, which was my place for 7 months. And I said, no, I think he just wrote down that when he was arrested. Oh, very well. Well, I thought you'd want to be informed. I certainly hope it works out well for Mr. Grell. Thank you so much. And he was, about the 5th time this happens, and he's calling about somebody the FBI has come by his place to ask about. I thought, God, if that was me, I would start screaming, like, what in the hell were you doing with my place while I was away, you know? I go away, and now the FBI is visiting me weekly. I'm on some kind of hot list now. But he never did. He didn't react like I would have said, Jesus, you've taken advantage of me. Oh, very well. Well, I wish you people well. And I realized that everything that was said about his reputation as a writer and being on the side of the working guy and the working woman as opposed to the top end, the people that were like conducting Dachau and the Nazis that ran World War II and all the rest. He was a genuine guy, genuine all the way, which is really something that is inspirational when you find people that genuinely are genuine.
I love you till the ocean is folded and hung up to dry, and the 7 stars go squawking like geese about the sky. The years shall run like rabbits, for in my arms I hold the flower of the ages and the first love of the world. But all the clocks in the city began to whir and chime. Oh, let not time deceive you. You cannot conquer time. In the burrows of the nightmare, where justice naked is, time watches from the shadow and coughs when you would kiss.